Hello, respected viewers. It's George from Ireland. So, welcome back to my channel. And in this video, I'm going to explain why the United Kingdom should not pay reparations for slavery. The Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting is about to start in Samoa, a Commonwealth country, of course. And several heads of state have said they want to broach the issue of the United Kingdom paying reparations. Now, this issue has been there in the background since the 1970s. It was regarded as a lunatic fringe issue. I remember reading David Lamb's book, The Africans, as in an American journalist's survey of his time in Africa, saying there's close to nil chance that this will ever be paid. But anyway, some people have kept putting on the agenda for decades, and now there's some sort of chance that it is going to be paid, but I'm saying that it shouldn't be. Some of the advocates of this payment are relying on the historical argument of inevitability, which is a very fallible one. It might work. I mean, the payments might be made, but not because they're inevitable. Almost as though we don't have a choice. We do have a choice. A bit ironic for those who are saying slavery is bad to say, no, 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 people have no choice. One of the many horrific things about slavery is, of course, it deprives people of choices. So I don't wish to diminish or belittle the horrendous suffering of people who are enslaved. And this is principally focused on the transatlantic slave trade from about 1619 in the British Empire into 1807, the end of the transatlantic slave trade. Of course, people were held in servitude into the 1830s in the Caribbean and into the 1840s in some other parts of the British Empire. So, picture the heartrending scene as the slavers are tearing families apart, mother parted from her children, husbands and wives, siblings parted from each other. They have no idea where they're going. These whites who look like monsters to them, with whom they've got no common language, heartlessly breaking up the family. They're enchained, they're branded. Imagine the agony of that. They're completely dehumanized. They've got no idea where they're going or what's going to happen to them, what fate will befall them. Will they be killed and eaten? They think these whites might be cannibals, forced into the dank and fetid hold of a ship. And of course, they're chained up for hours, days at a time, and are having to answer calls of nature there where they are. The smell must have just been nauseating. Some of them lose the will to live, brought up on ship. On the ship's deck, I mean, horrifically whipped within an inch of their lives. Not surprising, some of them chose to commit suicide by jumping overboard. Anyone who's ill would be summarily murdered. So this is abduction, this is torture, degradation. Rape was into the mix as well, having to work under the broiling sun, under the lash, for no pay at all. Families always arbitrarily split up, and people could be killed by fiat, having no rights. The degradation would have been just unspeakable. Wow, how heartless can people be? And so then it was for racist reasons as well. So slavery has existed throughout recorded history. That's about 5,000 years in all parts of the world. And in ancient India, it was abolished by Ashoka, then brought back. In ancient Persia, it was abolished briefly, and then it was restored. The only places where it started to be abolished and stay abolished was Europe from the Middle Ages onwards. So the Normans abolished it in England in the 11th century AD. And all right, serfdom was not too different, but it wasn't quite chattel slavery. In Ireland, it was the Anglo-Normans who abolished slavery for us. And of course, they're bigots who try and pretend that the Union was somehow slavery, which is really demeaning to those who actually suffered slavery. So there was no abolitionist movement in Africa until the Europeans conquered it, or indeed got various African kingdoms to accede to their empires. So we're all descended from slaves. So why does only some people get compensation? You may know the chessboard paradigm, 64 boards on the chessboard. If you put up 64 squares, put 1 grain of rice on the first square and 2 on the second and 4 on the third and so forth, and keep doubling. So keep increasing it exponentially. By the 64th square, it's 18 quadrillion grains of rice. So if you have 2 parents and 4 grandparents and 8 great grandparents and so forth, you'd have that many ancestors and ancestresses by the 64th generation. Of course, we've never had anything more than 9 billion people because distant cousins got married. But the point is, we're all related to people somewhere along the line. We must all be descended from slaves. We must all be descended from slavers. So why is it only the white majority nations are going to have to pay reparations, and why is it only the black majority nations or the non-white majority nations are going to receive the reparations? This is preposterous. And why does it only go back to, say, the 17th century? So it's unjust, illogical and inconsistent. It's racist to say countries most people are white have to pay, and those countries where most people are not white, they get to receive. Okay, Africans, they raided the coast of Europe, and they enslaved people. That's why the coast is clear. In Spanish, say no hay moriscos en la costa. Okay, there are no Moors, as in North Africans, on the coast. They used to raid Spain, Portugal, France, Italy, Greece, and so on, and take people to slavery. Even in Ireland, the people of Baltimore were taken by the Saleh rovers to Morocco. The coast of Great Britain was raided too. Now, it wasn't as prolific as the monstrous triangular trade, but the principle was there established. Maybe just these African thalassocracies didn't have the wherewithal, the resources to be kidnapping people. So not that the whites were more evil. Of course, there are plenty of stupid and evil whites. They're evil people. They're good people of all races. So no race is evil and no race is good. We're only individuals. So slavery has always existed until the Middle Ages in Europe, and not on a racial rationale, like white Englishmen enslaved white Englishmen in Ireland. We enslaved each other. We raised the coast of Great Britain for slaves like St. Patrick and so on. But from the late Middle Ages, this white supremacist view took hold in Europe, that enslaving non-whites was permissible, enslaving fellow whites was impermissible, and so on. So obviously, fortunately, that's gone. But it's preposterous to say that only the enslavement of certain people should lead to reparations, and why. So it's punishing the innocent. It's wrong to say if your ancestor was a criminal, you must be punished for that felony. No, and all of us will have antecedents who were criminals, and just because your ascendant was a criminal doesn't mean the descendant should be punished for it. Just because your ascendant was a victim doesn't mean that you're a victim and you should therefore be rewarded for it. No, no to this guilt tripping. Okay, so it's not really got nothing to do with development or underdevelopment. You know, say Saudi Arabia had slavery till 1962. If slavery really enriches a country, why they're not the richest country in the world? They're actually quite poor when it was abolished. They've got oil and gas now. Okay, so you know, countries like Singapore, then part of Malaysia, had slavery into the 19th century. They're now one of the richest countries in the world. Countries that abolished it very early are not necessarily very rich. So it's ridiculous. Like Mexico abolished it well before the United States. Why not why not the wealthiest country? It was declining because it wasn't particularly profitable. Yes, it's very inhumane. It's monstrous. No one should be enslaved. That really ought to go without saying. But by forcing people to pay for something they didn't do, isn't that not too dissimilar in principle from slavery? No, it's not kidnapping. No, it's not branding people. It's not whipping people, and it's not raping people. But it is still making them give away their money and treating them like criminals when in fact they're innocent. Now you might say, but reparations have been paid after wars. They have been paid in the immediate aftermath of wars. In case of Germany, for people who've been enslaved by them, to the individual, in the lifetime of the individual. But you have to draw the line somewhere. Why should it not be the lifetime of the individual? If we're going to go back 200 years, why not 2,000 years? So this is unjust and illogical, and it must be stopped. If these people actually cared about slavery, they would realize we can never ever free those who died a long time ago. What we can do is free people who are enslaved today. What about the Uyghurs who are enslaved in China? We don't hear a peep about that from the Commonwealth, and some of these countries are in fact Chinese allies. And when I mean enslaved, I do mean literally enslaved, grabbed, locked up for years without pay, working in these factories in grossly inhumane conditions. What about North Korea, which is a slave state, where political dissidents can spend the rest of their lives toiling in the most inhumane, barbaric conditions in mines? We don't hear any word about that. If they're lucky, they're hired out at below the minimum wage in Russia, and some of that goes to the North Korean regime. There is slavery around the world. Anti-Slavery International says there are more slaves in India than anywhere else. Now, the government of India is against slavery. Many Indians will be as appalled by slavery as I am. And obviously, the Indian police tries to crack down on it, not very effectively. A lot of people in the Middle East, some of the workers from countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, the Philippines, they end up in slavery. Their passports are taken, they're not paid, or at least not paid the salary they're actually promised, and not allowed days off for years. And that is slavery. So if these people actually cared about slavery, they would do something about real slavery now. No, they're not. They just want money. They just want to guilt trip people. They just want to feel that they've somehow humiliated the UK. So stand up to this. This must not be compromised with. We must say no to this. Anyway, thank you for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate at PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Goodbye.